It was 3:02 a.m. when the blinking red finally turned green. The dashboard stabilized. The memory leak was sealed. The API calls stopped spiking, and the system stopped eating itself alive. 70,000 concurrent users, 5 data centers humming, and the beast didn't crash. That made it launch number 719. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the fluorescent ceiling panels like they might blink back. My fingers hurt. I hadn't realized I'd split the skin on my right index knuckle again. That usually happened around hour 12. The door opened behind me. I didn't have to look to know who it was. Only one person walks into a live launch room after it's quiet. "Hey," the CTO said. No greeting, no good work. Just that soft tech bro monotone that always sounded like a performance review. He stood behind me for a moment, arms folded. I didn't turn. The green lights were still glowing. My heartbeat was finally slowing down. Then he said it. "We need someone native to social." I blinked. He said it like he was talking about a missing config file, like it was just an operational detail. I turned around. He was smiling, that thin, dry kind of smile that means you've already made your decision, and now you're just waiting for everyone else to catch up. And standing next to him, under the sterile hum of the launch room lights, was a kid. Couldn't have been older than 23. Hair perfect. Ring light in one hand. A brand new hoodie that probably cost more than my first car. "This is Tyler," the CTO said. "He's joining as a technical growth partner. Social native, Gen Z mindset. Very tapped in." I stared at Tyler. He nodded at me like he'd just passed me the aux cord. "My name's Dorian Shaw," I said. "I'm the lead systems architect at Peregrine Cloud. Been here 28 years. I didn't shake Tyler's hand. I didn't stand up. I just let the silence stretch. "I've read your stuff," Tyler said. "Crazy how you stabilized the edge mesh back in 19. Total legend." I looked back at the terminal. The green lights had faded to idle blue. "Thanks," I said. What I didn't say was that I'd written the edge mesh protocol while my wife was in labor with our second kid, that I missed the birth because the West Coast load balancer wouldn't failover properly, that the code he was complimenting was written on an airport floor while I was living on Red Bulls in debt. Tyler set his ring light down on the console and started snapping pictures of the monitors. The CTO clapped me on the shoulder. "Dorian, we're hoping you can help Tyler get ramped up. He's got a lot of ideas around community activation and viral architecture. This is a great chance for you to pass down some of that legacy magic." Legacy magic. That's what they called 28 years of trench work. Of 3 a.m. calls and weekend deploys and launch war rooms that smelled like stale coffee and panic. That's what they called the years I spent writing core infrastructure, while the company rebranded itself 4 times and outlived 3 CEOs. I nodded. "Because what else do you do?" They moved my desk 2 days later. Far corner. No window. No direct access to the monitoring grid. Pager reassigned. "You've earned some breathing room," HR said. Instead of tuning clusters and load scalers, I was reviewing technical documentation, updating old wiki pages, cross-checking deprecated API endpoints, things they didn't trust AI to do right but didn't value enough to automate either. Tyler posted a photo of himself in the launch room. Caption: "Save the night. Startup life never stops." It got 32,000 likes. I sat at my new desk and scrolled past it. The photo had my shoulder in it. Just the edge, cropped like an artifact, like a forgotten statue behind a tourist's selfie. I didn't comment. Didn't like it. Didn't mention it in the Monday sync. I just pulled up the system logs, ran a diff against the rollback files, and saved a copy. Then I unplugged my laptop and left quietly as systems exploded. Tyler's face was on the homepage of Fast Company when I opened my laptop that morning. The headline read, "Meet the TikTok engineer reinventing legacy infrastructure with AI." There he was, half smile, sleeves rolled, framed in warm studio lighting like he'd just solved climate change instead of causing 3 undocumented outages in 6 weeks. Behind him in the photo, just out of focus, was the CTO grinning like he'd raised the kid himself. I sat at my kitchen table. Same place I'd sat through every overnight release since COVID. Coffee gone cold, toast untouched. The article quoted Tyler calling our back end a rusting monument to a past generation's paranoia. Said he'd brought in AI-led thinking to make the system leaner, faster, more human-centered. I scrolled past the words and straight to the code snippets he included in the sidebar. I didn't even have to look hard. They were mine, the same sharded cache handler I wrote in 2015, with a few variable names changed and a comment about algorithmic empathy added in. The same logic. The same structure. Hell, he hadn't even fixed the minor recursion bug I'd patched in 2019. He just rewrapped it in a decorator and called it predictive. That morning, I started recording everything. At first, it felt like overkill. I wasn't trying to ruin him. I wasn't even angry yet, just hollow. I kept a local copy of the repo. I mirrored his commits, every pull request he made. I archived. I set up a watcher on the internal Slack channels where he did most of his performative engineering. That's what it was. Performative. Everything he touched was documented like he was filming a nature special about his own brilliance. I watched him live stream a code session where he trained a large language model to self-optimize build pipelines. I was running a shell script I wrote 8 years ago, with echo statements swapped for memes. The comments lit up. Hundreds of viewers thanking him for his vision. I didn't comment. I just screen recorded it, labeled the file, and added it to the folder I'd named Receipts. At night, I lay in bed with my phone lighting up the ceiling. I scrolled through more interviews, more posts, more videos. In one, he said, "When I joined Peregrine, the stack was basically a graveyard. I had to dig it up, clean the bones, and rebuild from scratch. I closed the app and stared at the darkness for a while. In 1999, I slept under the server rack in Fremont the night before Y2K. The rest of the company partied in Tahoe. I stayed behind because I didn't trust the BIOS clocks on the storage arrays. At midnight, a regional air traffic system pinged our DNS for a weather sync, and we responded without a blip. That night, we kept the lights on. We kept the planes in the air. No one posted about it. No one called me a savior. I just went home the next day, showered, and got back to work. Now Tyler was building a brand on a scaffolding he didn't understand. He was calling my work a corpse and painting himself as the resurrection. And people believed him. The cracks started to show, of course. Internal latencies doubled. Cache hit ratios dropped by 19%. One of our European endpoints failed quietly for 6 hours, and he blamed DNS propagation while sipping a green smoothie on his stream. I watched engineers scramble to patch around him. They never said it out loud, but I could read it in the commits, in the comments, in the way they pushed hotfixes at 2 a.m. and never tagged him. The CTO, meanwhile, was leaning into the story. Said in a board meeting that Tyler represented the new era of system thinking. Called me our legacy steward. Like I was some old librarian wandering the stacks of a dead language. Then came the SXSW invite. He posted the email on Slack, cropped to show the words keynote speaker. Said he was going to talk about reinventing back-end architecture for the social age. Said he was calling the talk the savior of the stack. I watched the reactions roll in. Applause emojis, fire emojis, a few rocket ships. I didn't react. Just watched the cursor blink in the corner of the screen, and I whispered, "That stack was mine." The first message came on a Tuesday night at 11:43 p.m. Slack pinged, and I saw the name, Reyes, one of the back-end guys I'd mentored years ago, solid engineer, never dramatic. "Hey man, this build is unstable. Are you seeing this?" 2 minutes later, another one. Different engineer. Cache thrash is out of control. Tyler says it's just noisy data. It's not. Then another. The autoscaler's ignoring throttle commands. We're going to blow the cap on East Coast traffic. I didn't respond to any of them. Just kept reading, watching. They weren't saying anything in the public channels. No one was tagging Tyler. No one dared. He'd become radioactive in the way only the most protected people can be failure-proof by narrative. The CTO had wrapped him in a story, and stories are harder to kill than facts. At the Thursday sync, we brought up latency anomalies. Tyler blamed legacy code, said we needed cleaner abstractions to match modern usage surfaces. The CTO nodded like he was listening to a TED Talk. The problem wasn't the engineers, it was fear. The kind that comes when you realize accountability has been uncoupled from visibility. Tyler was everywhere in the meetings, on the homepage, on the investor decks, but nowhere when it counted. And every time the system creaked under the weight of his patchwork upgrades, someone else got handed the wrench. That's when I started going back into the office. Late nights. No announcements. No calendar blocks. Just my badge and the hum of forgotten machinery. The place felt different, colder in some ways, hotter in others. The HVAC had been modified, I could see it in the logs. Cooling thresholds had been lowered across server bays. Fans were running constantly. That only happens when someone's forcing machines to sprint without proper rest cycles. I walked the floor like I used to, past the racks I'd helped install, past the maintenance closet with my initials still etched inside the door from 2004. I checked the temperature logs, then cross-referenced them with memory draw and CPU usage. The numbers didn't match what was being reported externally. I pulled up the performance dashboard Tyler had demoed to the board 2 weeks ago. On paper, everything looked perfect. 99.99, 9% uptime, 80% efficiency. No flagged errors. But when I drilled into the raw data, I found the real story. He'd hard-coded the reporting layer, created a shell metric overlay that scraped from test environments and piped in clean data during load spikes. A fraud. Not just incompetence. Fabrication. For investors. For image. I didn't feel rage. Not yet. Just an icy stillness. Like the moments before a storm surge hits the hull. I went back to my terminal and started writing. Not sabotage. Surveillance. I built a hidden listener into the deployment pipeline. A watcher that captured every diff, every rollback, every instance of metric manipulation. It lived in a namespace no one ever checked anymore. Documentation from 2011 said it was deprecated. Perfect camouflage. I didn't tell anyone. Not the engineers. Not the CTO. Not Reyes. This wasn't about whistleblowing. Not yet. Intelligence first. I told myself. Revenge later. The night I finished wiring it up, I sat in the empty war room and thought about launch #237. That was the night Peregrine's satellite partner almost lost $11 million in contracts because of a faulty WeatherSync node. We caught the error mid-deploy. I stayed up for 36 hours straight rewriting the patch. Systems came and back online just before the FAA deadline. Everyone celebrated. I missed my daughter's piano recital. She played a solo. My wife filmed it on her phone and sent me the video. I watched it 6 months later during a code freeze. The audio was blown out, and she never played again after that year. I don't think I ever really apologized. I think I told myself saving the launch was worth it. Now here I was, alone again. The room buzzed with the low hum of always-on servers. Blue light flickered off the monitors. I opened the kill switch file. It had been sitting untouched for 9 years. One command. One consequence. But not yet. The TV above the bar had the sound off, but I didn't need audio to know it was going south. Tyler stood in front of a touchscreen wall lit up with performance metrics, green, blue, and purple lines dancing like fireworks. He was smiling, eyes wide, moving his hands like a magician revealing the final act. Investor Demo Day. 15,000 tuned in live. Probably more by now. The platform was supposed to withstand 10x normal load, deliver seamless real-time analytics, and launch a new auto-scaling feature, co-developed with machine learning insights, as Tyler had written in the press release. I sat in a booth downtown with a double bourbon and my phone face down. I didn't need notifications. I already knew what was coming. The metric wall behind Tyler began to stutter. First a hiccup, then a freeze. The audience didn't notice at first. The flashy colors were still glowing, just not updating. Tyler kept talking. throwing around phrases like efficiency-aware thread orchestration and adaptive signal tuning. Buzzwords stacked on buzzwords. Then the screen behind him blinked red. He paused. The feed cut to a static placeholder. We are experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by. I didn't sip my drink. I just watched. Cut to the control room, panic in motion. Engineers moving. CTO leaning over someone's shoulder, mouthing something sharp. Then Tyler appeared again. Live. No graphic. Just him. Jacket off now. Sweat under the collar. We're investigating a legacy codebase conflict that triggered an unexpected condition, he said. Legacy code. I laughed, quietly. The CTO was pacing in the background. Face pale. He wasn't smiling anymore. I pulled out my laptop and opened the logs, not the cleaned-up ones from the dashboards. The raw event, cascade from the last deploy. The truth. Tyler's optimization had introduced a recursive memory bind inside the autoscaler's watchdog. Under pressure, it duplicated container calls instead of throttling them. The system ate itself in less than 9 seconds. It was all there. Timestamps, commits, internal pull requests, approval logs with Tyler's name stamped on them. I zipped it all up, tagged it with one line. The truth behind the demo day crash. Then I started sending. Not to the press team. Not to the board. I sent it to every journalist who'd ever written something worth reading. The ones who still used terminal windows and read RFCs for fun. I dropped it in encrypted messages, attached proof, and let the documentation speak for itself. I finished my bourbon as Reddit went live. Sysadmin. Peregrine Demo Day was a fraud. Here's why. Hacker News. Internal leak confirms fabricated metrics and optimization disaster. Comments poured in. Engineers dissected every screenshot, every stack trace. Someone built a sandbox to replicate the failure. It crashed in 6.4 seconds. Tyler went dark for 2 days. Then he posted a video, sitting in a minimalist studio with a plant in the background and a mic that looked like it cost more than my first car. Setbacks, he said, are just setups for comebacks. He smiled. He still had followers. He still got invited to a panel. Rebuilding after chaos. What startups can learn from failure. They called him resilient. They called him a visionary. They called me nothing. I stared at the console window on my screen. The cursor blinked, waiting. The Watcher script had finished compiling everything. Code commits, Slack threads, invoice reports, investor briefs, falsified metric overlays, and internal emails. All cross-referenced. All time-stamped. I typed one line. Execute, reckoning. I didn't press enter. Not yet. The lights were dim in the old launch room. Not off, just low, humming like the last breath of a tired machine. I hadn't sat in that chair in over a year, but the leather still remembered me. The way it creaked when I leaned back. The monitor in front of me flickered on without hesitation, as if it had been waiting all this time for me to return. Midnight. No teams. No sinks. No pizza boxes or half-drunk energy drinks. Just me. A loopback connection. And one last job. I keyed in the root credentials, bypassed the corporate SSO garbage Tyler had installed last quarter, and dropped into the shadow environment, my environment. The one I'd built after demo day. The Watcher script was already waiting, one command away from detonation. But I wasn't here to crash anything. That would have been too easy. I opened the payload archive. Logs, emails, source diffs, internal documentation Tyler had rebranded as original thought. All of it cross-referenced, time-stamped. Signed with the CTO's approval when applicable, or his silence when it wasn't. The Slack transcripts alone read like a masterclass in gaslighting. Tyler mocking the engineers, calling ops low-value labor, complaining about how the old guard didn't understand what real influence looked like. I wrapped it all into a single executable. Not malicious, just illuminating. The truth doesn't break systems. It just forces them to update. I pinged the investor dashboard API, the internal monitoring shell, the company website, and the Slack archive viewer. And I deployed. Not reckoning as destruction, reckoning as exposure. On every platform the company touched, dashboards, displays, internal monitors, a new overlay faded in. Not flashy, just quiet black text on white, with slowly scrolling receipts. Real-time commit comparisons. Live Slack chat snippets alongside timelines. AI-enhanced code overlays re-revealed as simple diffs from the repo I'd written between 2009 and 2017. Commentary included. Attribution corrected. But his words did. Who cares if it's stable, it looks good on the deck. Just rename the variable. Dorian stuff is too old to track anyway. Make it sexy for the board. Engineers don't matter. I watched the audit spread like heat across glass. In the hours that followed, I didn't move. I didn't blink much. But I did keep refreshing the investor call transcript feed. By 3:42 a.m., 3 investors had formally withdrawn. At 4:15, Tyler's profile disappeared from the team page. The cached version stayed up for another hour before falling behind the new push. At 5:27 a.m., the CTO released a statement. Personal reasons. Short. Safe. Cowardly. No one called me. No one emailed. But my phone buzzed anyway. Engineers. Quiet messages. No questions. Just 2 words. Thank you. I stood up, walked across the launch room to the glass wall, and looked into the server bay. The same racks. The same blink patterns I used to dream about. There was one node, still running standalone in the legacy column. I'd left it alive all this time. Out of sentiment. It had no real use anymore. No load. No traffic. I walked in and shut it down. Not a reboot. A goodbye. Walking back felt heavier than it should have. My boots didn't sound right on the tile. Like I didn't belong here anymore. Like I was a ghost in a machine that had finally turned on the lights. At my terminal, the screen pulsed once and displayed a line I hadn't seen in years. Launch 720 complete. You may disconnect. I closed, and the lid and did exactly that. Later, I sat on my porch. Quiet. No fanfare. No interviews. The world still spinning. 28 years of keeping the lights on, and no one would ever fully know how close they came to going out. But that's the job, sometimes pressing the right key, not the loud one, ending something without announcing it. The tech world doesn't remember you. It just repackages you until you're convenient to forget. But truth stays. Somewhere tonight, a founder is lying. A junior dev is doubting himself. A manager is pretending. A machine is quietly logging all of it. Betrayal isn't rare. Neither is retribution. Sometimes, all it takes is one last launch.